There are moments when the soul cries out, "Why me, Allah?" when life feels heavy and unfair. And there are moments when the world questions, "Why Islam?" accusing its teachings of injustice or inequality. But sometimes the pain we don't understand and the laws we misjudge are both mirrors, reflecting our distance from divine wisdom. The question is not why Allah allows hardship or authority, but what He wants our hearts to learn through them. There are moments in life when the world seems unbearably heavy, when pain enters the heart and questions begin to whisper in the mind. Why is this happening to me? Why does Allah allow me to suffer? These are not the questions of weak faith, but of a seeking soul, one that yearns to understand divine wisdom. Suffering is one of the greatest mysteries of human existence, and yet within it lies one of the greatest gifts. Allah, in His infinite mercy, does not allow pain without purpose. What seems like loss in the moment may be a doorway to greater gain in the hereafter. Every tear that falls is counted, every heartbreak is known, and every difficulty carries a hidden mercy. We must understand that pain is not always a sign of Allah's anger. Sometimes it is His way of calling us back. Sometimes it is the language of love that wakes a sleeping heart. When everything is taken from us, we realize that nothing truly belonged to us except our relationship with Him. In the Qur'an, Allah reminds us that He tests those He loves, not to break them, but to strengthen them. When a believer faces hardship with patience, they are not being abandoned, they are being honored with an opportunity to grow closer to their Lord. It is through pain that hearts soften, prayers deepen, and reliance on God becomes real. Ease often makes us forget, but hardship makes us remember, and in that remembrance lies peace. Life's suffering is a reminder that this world was never meant to be a paradise. It is a temporary station, a place of learning, purification, and return. If we were to never feel pain, we would never seek healing, and the ultimate healing lies only in Allah. Every struggle has a divine purpose, whether it is loss, sickness, betrayal, or heartbreak. Allah allows them not because He wants to see us in pain, but because He wants to see us transformed by it. The soul is like gold, it shines only after it passes through the fire. So when life burns, know that Allah is refining you for something higher. When the night feels too long, remember that dawn is promised. And when tears fall, know that they are a form of worship. For the heart that breaks before Allah is the heart that is rebuilt by Him, just as Allah's wisdom governs the unseen purpose of pain. His wisdom also governs the balance between men and women. Many people today misunderstand the concept of men's authority in Islam, assuming it means domination, superiority, or control. But the Arabic term qawwama, used in the Quran, means responsibility, guardianship, and care. Allah entrusted men with the duty to protect, provide, and lead with justice, not to rule with arrogance. It is not a privilege, but a weighty test of accountability. The Prophet said, "Each of you is a shepherd, and each of you will be asked about his flock." The man's role is one of service and sacrifice, not power and pride. He is commanded to honor his wife, to consult her, to provide for her, and to never harm her physically or emotionally. True authority in Islam mirrors mercy, not oppression. The Prophet himself was the gentlest with his wives, helping them, listening to them, and valuing their counsel. His leadership was rooted in compassion and humility. When men forget the spiritual foundation, the concept of qawwama becomes distorted, not by religion, but by ego. Similarly, women in Islam are not passive beings. They are pillars of faith, intellect, and moral strength. Their rights were given by Allah, not granted by men. 14 centuries ago, Islam gave women the right to own property, seek education, choose their spouse, and inherit wealth at a time when the world denied them basic humanity. The Quran honors women as equal souls before God. Spiritual worth is not defined by gender, but by righteousness. Indeed, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Islam does not elevate men above women or women above men. It elevates both through justice, compassion, and balance. The problem is not with Islam, but with how people misuse it. When a man uses his role to dominate rather than protect, or when a woman feels her worth is tied only to rebellion rather than purpose, both lose sight of divine harmony. Islam's gender roles are not about hierarchy, they are about complementarity. Just as night and day differ but complete each other, men and women were created with distinct strengths that serve a shared mission: to worship Allah and build a just world. Both pain and authority are reflections of the same divine lesson, that life is a trust, not ownership. Whether through suffering or leadership, Allah tests what we love most to show us what truly matters. Pain teaches patience, and authority teaches responsibility. When misused, both lead to harm. When understood, both lead to peace. If a person uses their trial to grow closer to Allah, the pain becomes a mercy. If a man uses his strength to uplift others, his authority becomes a blessing. Everything in Islam revolves around intention and justice. The believer is asked not to seek comfort, but to seek meaning. Allah allows suffering not to hurt us, but to awaken us. He grants authority not to create superiority, but to measure humility. In both, the soul learns to surrender, to trust, and to reflect divine character in its dealings with the world. In the end, all struggles, whether emotional, social, or spiritual, point us back to the same truth. There is no strength and no peace except through Allah. When we understand this, pain no longer feels like punishment, and authority no longer feels like power. They become signs, reminders that everything we endure and everything we hold is a test of faith. Islam is not a religion of oppression. It is a religion of balance, mercy, and purpose. And in that balance, we find the wisdom to see beauty even in suffering and fairness, even in responsibility. For every hardship carries a hidden mercy, and every role carries a sacred trust. When the believer learns to see through the eyes of faith, they no longer ask, "Why me?" but say, "Lie, Allah. What do you want me to learn from this?" That is when the heart begins to heal, justice begins to live, and faith begins to shine. When we talk about suffering, the first thing that comes to the human heart is pain, pain of loss, rejection, heartbreak, injustice, or failure. But behind that pain lies a divine message, whisper from Allah, reminding us that this world was never meant to be perfect, and that our peace does not come from the absence of difficulty, but from the presence of faith. When we ask, why does Allah allow suffering? We are not questioning His mercy. We are simply trying to understand His wisdom. Every test that enters our lives is not random. It is designed, measured, and perfectly timed by the one who knows our hearts better than we know ourselves. There are things within us that can only be awakened through pain, lessons that comfort can never teach. Just as the seed must be buried in darkness before it blossoms into life, the soul must pass through trials before it reaches its true strength. Sometimes Allah takes away what we cling to so that we may cling to Him alone. He allows our hearts to break, not to destroy us, but to rebuild us upon truth. The illusion of control, the pride of self-sufficiency, and the attachment to worldly things are all stripped away in the furnace of hardship, leaving behind a heart that finally sees with clarity. Pain becomes the purifier that removes spiritual dust from our souls. It humbles us, softens us, and teaches us reliance on the one who never abandons. Every hardship carries a hidden mercy, and every delay holds a divine wisdom. What we perceive as suffering might actually be the very thing saving us from greater harm or guiding us towards something far better. The human mind is limited, but Allah's knowledge is infinite. What feels unfair in the moment might be the most merciful decree for our eternal well-being. Suffering is the language through which Allah speaks to the heart that has forgotten Him. It's in the silence of tears that the believer finds the most honest conversation with their Creator. When life strips us of what we love, we begin to discover what truly matters. Through pain, we learn that peace is not found in external circumstances, but in the heart that surrenders to Allah's will. The believer doesn't ask for a life without tests, but for a heart that remains steadfast through them. Suffering reminds us that this world is not our home. It is merely a journey toward the eternal. The Prophet once said that when Allah loves a person, He tests them. These tests are not punishments, they are invitations to rise higher in faith. The storms we face are meant to cleanse us, not drown us. Every tear that falls is recorded, every sigh heard, every ache known. Nothing escapes the mercy of Allah. Even in our darkest moments, He is closer than our jugular vein. When you are at your lowest, know that He is watching, protecting, and guiding you. Sometimes He breaks your heart to save your soul. Sometimes He delays your prayer to deepen your patience. And sometimes He takes away what you thought you couldn't live without to show you that you can, because He is enough. When we shift our perspective from asking, why me, to saying, what does Allah want to teach me? We begin to experience a spiritual awakening. That is when pain becomes a path, hardship becomes healing, and loss becomes liberation. The believer learns to see pain as a mercy in disguise. It is through the nights of crying that faith grows roots. It is through the silence of unanswered prayers that sincerity is born. And it is through the loneliness of trials that we find companionship in Allah. The true meaning of suffering, then, is not cruelty, but compassion, divine compassion that calls us back to Him. If we lived without pain, we would forget our need for Allah. But through struggle, We are reminded of our fragility, our dependence, and our purpose. The heart that has suffered and still says, Alhamdulillah, is the heart that has truly understood the essence of faith. Pain is temporary. What it builds within us is eternal. It teaches us patience, empathy, humility, and trust. It reminds us that our story is being written by the one who never makes mistakes. When the believer embraces pain as part of Allah's wisdom, they no longer feel punished. They feel chosen to be refined, not ruined. And in that realization, the soul finds peace, knowing that every trial is a bridge leading closer to the mercy of the most merciful. When people look at Islam today, many misunderstand the concept of men's authority and women's rights, assuming that the religion gives power to one gender while oppressing the other. When we study deeply and seek knowledge with sincerity, we find that Islam's foundation is not built on superiority, but on balance, mercy, and justice. Allah created men and women as different but equal in worth. He designed them not to compete, but to complement each other, like two halves of a whole, each possessing unique strengths that serve a shared purpose, to worship Allah and build a society grounded in righteousness. The misunderstanding arises not from the divine message itself, but from human misuse of it. When Allah says in the Qur'an that men are protectors and maintainers of women, it is not a statement of privilege, but of responsibility. The word used, qawaman, carries the meaning of care, protection, and guardianship. It is a role of service, not dominance. The man's role in Islam is to provide, protect, and lead with justice, compassion, and humility, not with control or superiority. This is not about who is better, but about who carries which duty. The Prophet was the best example of this. He never raised his hand against any of his wives. He helped them in their chores. He listened to them, and he valued their opinions. His leadership within his home was not one of power, but of love. The man who thinks authority means dictatorship has misunderstood the essence of qawwama. True authority in Islam means accountability before Allah for every decision made, every right fulfilled or denied, and every heart hurt or healed under one's care. It is a trust, not a title. On the other side, the woman in Islam is not a secondary being. She is honored as a daughter, cherished as a wife, and respected as a mother. Her value is not measured by how much she looks like the world's version of success, but by her character, her intellect, and her devotion to Allah. She has the right to education, to own property, to choose her spouse, and to voice her opinion. Her worth in the sight of Allah is determined not by her gender, but by her righteousness. The Qur'an repeatedly reminds us that men and women are allies of one another, awliya, supporting each other in enjoining good and forbidding evil. Islam does not give men authority to suppress women. It gives both genders responsibility to uphold justice and mercy within their unique capacities. When people step away from this divine balance, oppression begins. Many of the injustices we see against women today are not a result of Islam, but of cultural habits and distorted interpretations that have nothing to do with the Prophet's teachings. The Prophet elevated the status of women at a time when they were buried alive, uneducated, and treated as property. He made it known that paradise lies beneath the feet of mothers, that educating a daughter brings blessings, and that honoring women is a sign of a true believer. These are not words of oppression, but of liberation. Islam does not seek to erase the differences between men and women. It celebrates them as signs of divine wisdom. A society that honors this harmony becomes strong, compassionate, and just. But when one gender oppresses the other, imbalance follows. The problem today is that many confuse equality with sameness. Equality in Islam does not mean men and women must do the same things. It means they are equally valued for the roles Allah has assigned them. Just as a teacher and a doctor serve different purposes, but both are essential, men and women are given roles that complement, not compete. Islam uplifts both, reminding each that the real power lies in fulfilling one's responsibility with sincerity and humility. The man who provides for his family with pure intention earns reward for every effort, and the woman who raises her children with faith shapes generations of believers. Both are acts of worship. When this divine structure is respected, love and peace flourish. But when arrogance, ego, or ignorance interfere, the system collapses. The truth is, Islam's vision of gender roles is not about one ruling over the other. It's about both walking side by side, each fulfilling their trust before Allah. Men are not superior to women, nor are women superior to men. They are partners in faith, created from one soul, standing equally accountable before their Creator. The more we understand this balance, the more we see that Islam is not the problem. Our lack of understanding is. True liberation for both men and women comes not from rejecting divine guidance, but from embodying it. When men lead with mercy and women rise with dignity, when both serve Allah rather than their egos, the home becomes a sanctuary and the world becomes more just. In this divine partnership, both hearts find peace because both live for something greater than themselves. They live for Allah. In every season of life, Allah allows certain experiences to shape us, and among the most misunderstood of these experiences is the presence of pain. Suffering, though difficult to bear, is not a sign of divine neglect, but a reminder of divine attention. It is through suffering that the heart awakens to realities that comfort would never allow it to see. Many people mistake hardship for rejection, believing that when Allah tests them, He has turned away. But in truth, it is often during our deepest pain that Allah is closest. He draws us nearer through what He withholds and teaches us through what He gives. When a person faces loss, sickness, betrayal, or disappointment, these are not signs of Allah's absence. They are signs of His mercy in disguise. Life in this world was never meant to be a place of constant ease. It is a place of learning, transformation, and purification. The very nature of this world is temporary and imperfect so that the soul may never mistake it for home. Every heartbreak, every setback, every sleepless night is a tool Allah uses to bring our hearts back to Him. When we lose something we love, we realize that all love, all security, and all permanence belong to Allah alone. What we thought was breaking us is often what saves us. Suffering is a teacher that speaks a divine language. Its lessons cannot be learned through ease. The believer's heart is shaped in the furnace of trials, for only through fire does gold shine. What Allah takes from you, He replaces with something far greater, maybe not in material form, but in spiritual depth, wisdom, and closeness to Him. And when the soul reaches that level of awareness, pain becomes less about asking why me, and more about saying, Wa, Allah, guide me through this. The purpose of pain is not to destroy, but to transform. The wound that once felt unbearable becomes the doorway to faith, and the hardship that seemed meaningless becomes the path to understanding. Just as Allah's wisdom governs pain, it also governs the balance between men and women in Islam. Topic that the modern world often misunderstands. Many people see the verse that describes men as protectors and maintainers of women and assume it means dominance. Divine guidance is not about privilege, it is about responsibility. When Allah assigned men the role of guardianship, He placed on their shoulders the duty to care, provide, and lead with justice and compassion. This responsibility does not make a man superior, it makes him accountable. The Prophet was the perfect example of this balance. His leadership was gentle, his strength was kindness, and his authority was rooted in humility. He respected women not as dependents but as equals in faith and partners in purpose. He listened to their voices, accepted their counsel, and never belittled their intellect or worth. True manhood in Islam is not measured by power but by service. The man who fulfills his role as protector does so not out of control but out of love. Likewise, the woman in Islam is not a symbol of weakness. She is a reflection of strength, intellect, and faith. Her value is not in comparison to man's, but in her unique purpose, one that complements, not competes. The Qur'an uplifts women, granting them dignity at a time when society stripped them of it. A woman's rights to education, property, and choice are divinely ordained, not human favors. Her role as a nurturer, thinker, and believer is sacred. Islam's concept of gender is not about sameness, but about balance. Just as day and night differ, yet complete the rhythm of life, men and women were designed with different qualities that sustain harmony in family and society. When this balance is respected, homes become peaceful and societies flourish. But when ego or ignorance leads one to misuse authority or reject divine structure, imbalance follows. Islam came not to favor one gender over another, but to create equilibrium between them, teaching that both are equally accountable before Allah. In the same way that pain tests the sincerity of faith, authority tests the sincerity of character. Both are trusts from Allah, meant to reveal who we truly are beneath comfort and convenience. When a person faces hardship, Allah observes their patience, gratitude, and humility. When a person holds authority, Allah observes their justice, mercy, and self-restraint. Both trials expose the heart's relationship with its creator. A man may be tested by how he leads, and a woman by how she endures or influences, and both are rewarded according to their sincerity. The wisdom of Allah lies in this balance. Suffering humbles the soul, and responsibility disciplines it. Together, they build the moral structure of humanity. The problem arises when humans view pain as cruelty and authority as power. In truth, both are means to spiritual growth. Suffering reminds us of our dependence on Allah, while authority reminds us of our duty toward others. When misused, both can corrupt. When understood, both can elevate. The believer who learns to trust Allah's plan, whether through hardship or responsibility, finds peace and surrender. This surrender is not weakness. It is strength of the highest form. The strength that comes from knowing that everything in life, both the storms and the calm, serves a divine purpose. When the heart accepts that Allah never allows anything without wisdom, it stops fighting His decree and starts flowing with it. That is where real peace begins. Whether one faces pain or holds power, both are opportunities to reflect divine qualities: patience, mercy, justice, and compassion. Every soul, regardless of gender or circumstance, stands equal before Allah, united by the same purpose to worship Him, to trust Him, and to serve His creation with sincerity. In this lies the beauty of Islam, that every hardship, every responsibility, every joy, and every sorrow is ultimately a path that leads back to Him. In the journey of faith, the human heart often finds itself standing between two realities: the struggle of pain and the responsibility of power. Both seem different in experience, but are deeply connected in divine purpose. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, uses both suffering and authority as mirrors through which the soul can see itself more clearly. Through pain, we are stripped of illusions and taught humility, and through authority, we are tested in justice and compassion. Together, these experiences teach us what it truly means to submit to Allah. Many times, people look at suffering and assume it is a punishment, forgetting that it might be a purification. They see hardship as loss, forgetting that it might be the beginning of spiritual rebirth. Similarly, when people see authority, they assume it is privilege, forgetting that it might be one of the heaviest responsibilities in the sight of Allah. Both are tests, one of patience and the other of accountability. A person who bears pain with faith is not a victim, but a victor, and a person who leads with humility is not a ruler, but a servant. This balance is what keeps the human heart connected to its Creator, ensuring that neither pride nor despair takes root. The purpose of life is not to live without trials, to rise above them through trust in Allah. Every hardship carries within it a hidden mercy, and every responsibility carries within it a sacred trust. The soul that recognizes this begins to see life differently, not as a series of random events, but as carefully woven threads of divine intention. When we talk about the wisdom of Allah allowing suffering, it becomes clear that hardship is not meant to destroy us, but to awaken us. It peels away the layers of ego and dependence on worldly things so that the believer can rediscover the essence of submission. Through pain, Allah teaches us lessons that ease could never offer. He reminds us of our weakness, our need for Him, and our ultimate purpose in this world. When everything around us breaks, we realize that He alone is unbreakable. The believer's tears are not signs of weakness, but of sincerity. They are prayers without words, conversations without speech. Every difficulty is an invitation to return to Allah with a heart renewed in trust. The more we try to resist pain, the more we lose its message. But when we surrender and say, "I trust you, Allah," even the heaviest burden becomes light. In that surrender lies liberation, freedom from the illusion that we control our fate, and freedom from fear of what lies ahead. Pain teaches us empathy. It softens our hearts toward the suffering of others. It humbles us before the majesty of Allah and reminds us that this world, with all its trials, is temporary. The believer understands that every loss in this world is a gain in the next, if endured with patience and faith. The wisdom behind every tear is that it purifies the heart, and the wisdom behind every unanswered prayer is that it aligns the believer's desires with what is best in the sight of Allah. Likewise, when we discuss the issue of men's authority and women's rights in Islam, it is essential to understand that the framework of Islam was built on justice, not power. The concept of men being protectors and maintainers of women is not about hierarchy, but about duty. It is not a position of superiority, but of sacrifice. When Allah assigned men this role, He gave them the responsibility to lead with fairness, to protect without oppression, and to serve with humility. A true leader in Islam is not one who dominates, but one who serves those under his care. The Prophet was the finest example of this principle, a man of immense strength and deep gentleness. His life was a living example that authority in Islam is about serving with mercy, not ruling with arrogance. The same religion that commands men to provide for and protect women also commands them to honor and respect them. Women, on the other hand, not portrayed as weak or dependent, they are seen as strong, intelligent, and spiritually equal partners in faith. Islam grants women rights that were revolutionary for their time and remain timeless today: the right to education, ownership, inheritance, and choice in marriage. These are not gifts from men, but rights from Allah. Islam recognizes the distinct strengths of both genders and builds harmony upon their cooperation. When this divine balance is observed, families flourish, communities thrive, and society finds peace. When either gender steps outside this balance, when men misuse authority, or when women feel compelled to reject divine guidance in search of equality defined by human standards, imbalance arises. Both suffering and authority therefore serve as instruments of divine testing. They reveal the true condition of the heart. A person given ease may forget Allah, while a person given pain may remember him more deeply. Similarly, a man entrusted with leadership may either reflect divine justice or fall into tyranny. A woman tested with hardship may either lose hope or rise with strength and faith. Life is a series of spiritual classrooms where every experience, joy or sorrow, power or weakness, carries a lesson. Allah allows these variations not to favor one person over another, but to guide each soul toward growth. The believer who understands this finds peace even in difficulty, because they know that everything is measured by divine wisdom. When we suffer, we are not abandoned, we are being shaped. When we lead, we are not exalted, we are being watched. The believer learns to view every situation through the lens of the hereafter, realizing that this world is only a temporary assignment. Those who misuse their roles or reject divine balance will face consequences, while those who act with justice, patience, and faith will be honored by Allah. The one who endures pain with gratitude and the one who uses power with humility are both walking the same path, the path of spiritual refinement. This understanding brings harmony within and peace without, for the heart that trusts Allah's wisdom in both suffering and authority has already found its way home.